Reading with your kids.
Hola, ni hao, konnichiwa, assalamu alaikum, shalom, mahaba, moni moli wanji, namaste, jumbo, bienvenidos. Hi, my name is Jedley, and this is the Reading with Your Kids podcast. We are coming to you from the beautiful neighborhood of Reedville in the southwest corner of Boston, Massachusetts. We are so delighted and so very honored that you are joining us in our mission to help families grow closer through reading. Please be sure to subscribe to the show in the iHeartRadio app, on Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, Spotify, Stitcher Radio, wherever you find your podcast. Our guest today is Cynthia Harmony. She is here to celebrate her beautiful picture book. It's called Mi Ciudad Sings. Before we invite Cynthia into the studio, we want to let you know that this episode of the Reading with Your Kids podcast is brought to you by My Home, the poignant, beautiful picture book by Heather Fontaine Youngs. Heather Fontaine Youngs was a preschool teacher for almost 2 decades in the South Bronx. She's taught students about homes and the different types of homes that exist all around us. She wants all of her students and children everywhere to feel included and heard about on all topics. She saw that there was a need for a story that could help introduce the topic of homelessness. Her hope is that My Home will not only allow students to feel included, but to help start a new conversation about homes for our youngest and most precious learners. Check it out today, My Home by Heather Fontaine Youngs. This episode of the podcast is also brought to you by the secret science of sports, the math, physics, and mechanical engineering behind every grand slam, triple axel, and penalty kick. Written by our dean of all things STEM and STEAM, Jennifer Swanson. Why does a football spiral? How do some athletes jump so high? Answer, it's science. The secret science of sports helps kids better understand concepts of science, technology, engineering, and math through the sports they love to play and watch. Every sport, from baseball to basketball, to football and soccer, to wrestling, tennis, and lacrosse, involves a bit of science, technology, engineering, and math. You can't throw a ball without Newton's law of motion, and you can't calculate a player's stats without math. Every type of sports equipment, helmet, cleats, shoulder, and knee pads were designed with the latest engineering and technology. You and your kids are going to absolutely love the secret science of sports, the math, physics, mechanical engineering behind every grand slam, triple action, triple axel, and penalty kick, written by our dean of all things STEM and STEAM, Jennifer Swanson. And this episode of the podcast is also brought to you by Theodore's Plate. Beautiful book written by Stephen Wade Nebgen. One Christmas Eve, in the land of kings and knights, a weary traveler knocks on the door of a family living in the woods. The family doesn't know that this traveler is a very special guest, and that a simple act of generosity will make this the most wonderful Christmas ever. Theodore's Plate is a heartwarming and timeless read for the entire family that can be enjoyed at any time of the year. Written by Stephen Wade Nebgen, Theodore's Plate tells a story that the world needs to hear, with messages of hope, kindness, and love. Check it out today. Theodore's Plate, written by Stephen Wade Nebgen. Joining us right now from Tucson in the state of Arizona. Our guest today is here to celebrate a beautiful picture book. It's called Mi Ciudad Sings. Please welcome to the show, Cynthia Harmony. Hey, Cynthia, how are you?
Hola, hi, how are you, Jed?
Muy bien, gracias. Thank you very much for being here.
Thank you for having me. Happy to be here.
Tell me about Mi Ciudad Sings. What city are we talking about?
It's based in Mexico City. That's where I was born and grew up. So Mi Ciudad is Mexico City in this book.
And as I understand it, the city in the story experiences an earthquake.
That's right. Yeah, it's based on the real event that happened in Mexico City in 2017. There was a big earthquake, and it's about what happened, and especially what happened afterwards, the aftermath.
So let's talk about that. So Mexico City, one of the most populous cities in the world, experienced this devastating earthquake, and there's lots of misery and suffering. That doesn't sound like the topic of a typical children's picture book.
No, it is a tough topic, hard to talk to with the young kids, but that's why I felt it was really important. The inspiration came from the actual earthquake. It was, so the story is not based on the hardship necessarily. It's in what happened afterwards and the reaction of how people that face challenges, how they can come together and how they can bring generosity and kindness to that sadness.
Yeah. I do have memories of watching the news and seeing people coming together and finding survivors buried under rubble, and people coming together to share food and to send food and clothing and whatnot. And you're right. This would be, I guess, a difficult topic to sit down and read with our kids. But I think it's important because it is a reminder that in times that are most challenging, human beings typically are able to step up and come together as community and to help each other.
Exactly. Yeah. Yes, it's the challenges that actually can bring the worst or the best in us. And that's kind of like the conversations that we can have with the kids after reading this story, is how we can find hope and how we can react to these challenges, especially, right now we're all still facing this global pandemic, and how do we react to that?
Sure.
How can we bring about something positive?
Yeah. You're right. And we are living in a time right now, which is, it's this kind of yin and yang kind of thing. I always need to remind myself that, yeah, things are difficult right now, but life for most human beings is so much better than it was 50, 100, 150 years ago. But we're still dealing with the pandemic. We have a nation that was invaded by another nation and is being pummeled right now. And even our little kids are hearing about these things. They are seeing that we're upset about these things. So I think sitting down and sharing this story would, I think, in a lot of ways, really comfort kids.
Yes, absolutely. Talking about it it's a very important way of finding that hope, that comfort, and also finding ways that we can move past those difficult emotions, like the fear or the anxiety. Yeah. So yeah, that's kind of what this story is about. And it was really important for me to have my main character have agency. So have the not just, have hope or be inspired by the helpers around her, but also find that in herself, like take action to become a helper too. And that's where you can move past these emotions of fear, of anxiety, of sadness.
Yeah. So tell us about this character.
So it's a little girl, and her dog, Pancho. So she's not going through all these alone. It's her dog, and they're walking and they're going on their journey every day. They walk to her mom's flower shop. But on this particular day, something happens. The music of the city that they love and all the familiar sounds just stop. And there's the earthquake, and then comes silence. And they have to rush to get to her mom, but in the way she finds that all of her neighbors are helping each other, which is actually what happened in real life, in the real event. People just, there was this outpouring of generosity, kindness, support in any way that they could, and different ages. People just took action and were proactive in helping, and not just waiting for rescue brigades and the Marines and, the normal rescue, that happens after in the aftermath of an earthquake. Mm-hmm. So people just took action, and that's something that inspires this little girl to be a helper too, she finds a lost pet and she needs to bring it home to the owner. So she gets Pancho and her mom to help her in doing that, and they find the song of the city again. So they can come back into harmony.
I haven't had the pleasure of visiting Mexico or Mexico City, and I want to ask you to tell us a little bit about the city in a moment. But as you were talking about hearing that song of the city, and then that song in the city becoming silent. It made me think back to a recent trip down to San Jose, Costa Rica, and being in the center of that town. There was a real song. There was lots of music being played and lots of voices, lots of people, traffic, animals, and that was constant. And I was just imagining being there and just be surrounded suddenly by silence. It would be terrifying, I think.
It's a complete disruption. It's a different moment. Like, yeah, to have silence in Mexico City, there's like 22 million people. And like you said, it's just filled with sounds and familiar sounds, normal sounds that we're used to. And it actually brings us joy. Mm-hmm. But yeah, to have that stop, even for a few seconds, it could be scary for a moment, but then it's what happens afterwards. It's just one moment it's a whole spread where things are just paused. Mm. And then what happens afterwards is not this fear and anxiety that goes on. It's actually the opposite.
What a great thing to talk about with our kids as we're sitting down, because everybody thinking about imagining themselves in this kind of situation, or in a flood, or a whatever kind of disaster. It's terrifying to kind of think about being there. But I think one of the things that we can talk about with our kids is that so often when we're actually in these situations, we're not thinking about the fear. We're taking action, and we're becoming inspired, and we're seeing people that need us, and then we're just immediately running to help, to be of service. I think that can be something that's both inspiring and comforting to kids to hear.
Yeah, very helpful. And kids understand these, I think, sometimes better than adults do, and grown-ups get stuck in these feelings, and it's like, okay, how we deal with these, how we talk about this. But kids, just like, if you remember in the beginning of the pandemic, we were coming to terms to what was happening, and then kids just showed this mm-hmm. kindness. They had these chalk drawings, this drawing on windows, these mm-hmm. kindness rocks, letters to doctors and nurses, and then it was just a normal reaction of, hey, we can do something, we can support each other.
Yeah. What was it that inspired you to tackle a tough topic like this in picture book form?
So after I experienced these, so when I was a kid in Mexico City in 1985, there was this devastating earthquake. It was one of the biggest ones. It took a long time for the city to get back to normal. Mm-hmm. And I was very young, but I still remember, even though I was really young. I don't think anybody that was there will ever forget. So after that, the city was better prepared because we have earthquakes all the time, every year. Not as strong, but there's some. So then the biggest one that happened in 2017, and I wasn't there this time, but my family was there. So I lived it through family and friends. So I studied psychology in Mexico City. So I had friends that were just offering, counseling services for people, and just completely, this reaction of being there, of being supportive. It actually became a hashtag. It's called, Mexico de pie, Mexico stands, just to show the resilience and to, the community coming together. So I just was very moved by everything that happened, and the social media brought people together. Even if we were not in the same mm-hmm. area, we just, gathered, we just see who needed what, volunteers, the resources. And I just knew that this story we normally, minority groups are represented with certain stereotypes. So I knew that these stories were not out there very much, of people, of Mexicans, or people from underrepresented communities being an example and inspiration, for the rest of the world. So it was something, I wanted to focus on that, more on that, on the difficult challenge, but on the inspirations and inspiration that happened. And just having these kids that have these heritage just feel like they could be heroes as well, that like they were like people that were doing that in the actual event, in the real event. So that was a story that I thought needed to be told, and for younger readers too, because there are not many of these stories out there.
Yeah. It is so important for kids to see themselves represented in the pages of books positively, heroically. And it's so important for kids who are different to see different people portrayed positively and heroically, to help us understand that everybody can be a hero, that everybody is a human being, that no matter our differences, we still share this beautiful humanity that makes us all family.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. That is a question, sorry, that I would have for parents, or like in your home library. How many books do you have of a minority group being inspiring? You know, that there's not that many. So that was important.
Yeah.
For me.
I so much am looking forward to visiting Mexico sometime in the future. In fact, we were supposed to go to Oaxaca back in February, but that pesky virus kept keeping us home. Tell me a little bit about Mexico, and especially Mexico City. What was that like growing up?
It was wonderful. So I think that's also like a response that people don't expect. I have this completely love and joy for Mexico, and especially Mexico City. It was just this access to our rich heritage of culture and history and art everywhere. Like over 150 museums. And I used to work in museums. So I'm just like, I think it's just, I didn't realize that how much of an impact that had in me. I just thought, everybody that, had access, all of the kids in different places just had access to all of these, but I didn't realize how lucky I was to have all that, growing up. And also just part of the culture. It's so rich, in the food, in the arts, in design, architecture, it's so eclectic and trendy, I would say. Like they just keep reinventing. It's very creative. So it's a huge place. It could be overwhelming for certain people, but I think I love the energy of the city, and I loved growing up there. I love the culture. It's very much about relationships and connections and dancing, like I said, like music and dancing and food and getting together. And that's a big part of our life. And I loved growing up there.
Yeah. What's the one thing that is such a part of Mexico City that a typical person, a person that didn't grow up there would be surprised to know about it?
Like particularly someone that visiting Mexico City for the first time, I would say you need you would get a very small sample of what it's like. You would need weeks to just go through like a few of the museums. But I think maybe the surprising fact is that, it was Mexico City was the capital of the Aztec Empire, the Mexica Tenochtitlan. So it's there. It's like, the Templo Mayor, the ruins of that. It's right there downtown, along with the cathedral that was built by the Spaniards, afterwards. So it's everything. It's just this clash of everything that's mixed, and it's just completely like, it's like a reinvention, like constantly. So there's just that's why I think like the surprising part for most people is that it will be trendy. It's just the new things are coming, especially from newer generations in all of these mix of the past and the present. Mm-hmm. I think that would be the most surprising part.
Yeah. One of the things that I've heard is that Mexico is so diverse, culturally and ethnically, and I think I don't think a lot of people realize that too. I think we've talked here on the show that a lot of people will think, Latin America, everybody's the same in Latin America, and that certainly is not the case.
No, that's not the case. Not even Mexico. Like Mexico City is so different from the South and the North, and even the way we talk and our food. Like it's so different. And and I think an important part of Mexico is that it's very open and used to tourism.
Mm-hmm.
So it's very welcoming of, everything and everyone. So yeah.
Hey, what's next for Cynthia Harmony? Do you have another project in the works?
I do. I have a book coming out next year. And that one is specific it's based on my sister's experience in the Monarch Reserve in Mexico City. No, I'm sorry, not in Mexico, in another state of Mexico. And it's an immigration story. It's also a little girl and her dad. She stays in Mexico, and it's her dad that goes to work here, in the fields. And then she's just waiting for him to come back. And it's like a parallel story with the monarchs that also migrate, north in search of food and to feed their families. And then they come back to Mexico. And that's the next story.
That was one of the things that blew me away not too long ago, learning about monarch butterflies, to understand that the monarch butterflies that are floating around my backyard here in Boston actually fly down to Mexico. Talk about mind blown. These teeny weeny, delicate little creatures travel all that way.
It's amazing. And it's generations of butterflies that go all the way, the journey north, and then they come back again to the same spot, the same forest. Yeah.
Hey, what's the reaction been to Mi Ciudad Sings?
So the book comes out in June, so it's not out yet, but it's very exciting for me. It's good. It's super exciting because it also has a Spanish version called Mi Ciudad Canta, and it's releasing at the same time. So I'm very excited about the community that inspired this story in Mexico City to be able to read this story with their kids in Spanish, or people here from the community that have like Mexican roots to be able to, or Latin American roots, to just be able to read this story in that language. So that's something that's very exciting for me. And yeah, so it's just right now just been getting the support from my team and my critic partners and people that have read and wrote wonderful reviews for this story. It also, it was selected for the Junior Library Guild. I believe So it's going to be included in their program for, in the libraries, and it's super exciting that the kids are going to find this book in Spanish in their libraries.
That's wonderful. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Well, I know people are going to want to know more about you and more about Mi Ciudad Sings. Where can folks find you?
So I have a website. It's cynthiaharmony.com. And there you can find all of my links. You can have, my social media accounts. And I have an email form if you just want to write me a note.
Awesome. We've had a wonderful time speaking about monarch butterflies and Mexico City and the new picture book by our guest, Cynthia Harmony, Mi Ciudad Sings. Hey, Cynthia, thanks so much for being with us.
Thank you so much, Jed.
Please be sure to join us for the next episode of the Reading with Your Kids podcast. Our guest will be Gina Sims. She'll be here to talk about heart to heart. There's 3 systems for staying connected. It's really, really fascinating conversation. You don't want to miss it. Hey, we would love for you to connect with us on social media. There's at least 3 ways for you to do that. First, Facebook.com/readingwithyourkids. Second, Instagram @readingwithyourkids. Third, Twitter @JedleyMagic. Oh, we're going to throw in a 4th. You can go to our website, readingwithyourkids.com. There's a contact button at the top of the page. Before you use that contact button, please sign up for our free newsletter. But using that contact button, you can let us know what we're doing well. Let us know what we could be doing better. Let us know who you would like to hear on a future episode of the Reading with Your Kids podcast. We really love your suggestions. I want to thank the folks who made today's show so wonderful. Of course, I want to start by thanking our guest, Cynthia Harmony. Please be sure to check out Mi Ciudad Sings. Also want to thank our sponsors, Heather Fontaine-Youngs, and her book, My Home. Also want to thank our Dean of all things STEM and STEAM, Jennifer Swanson. Be sure to check out The Secret Science of Sports. And we want to thank the author of Theodore's Plate, Stephen Wade Nebgen. Also want to thank my team, Fatima Khan, Rory Grady, Nicole Bellacastro, Ashley Contreras. I want to thank my beautiful wife for all the support she gives me. Most of all, we all want to thank you. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. And as always, thank you so very much for taking the time to make the world a better place by reading with your kids. I'll be looking for you in the next edition of the Reading with Your Kids podcast.